Hey, and welcome. So, in this video, I've decided to do something a little bit different. So I want to start doing Doom 2 videos on the channel, but in order to start that off, I wanted to do a full Doom 2 playthrough. Now, I could be fairly normal and do the PC version. I could even do the PS1 version, but I think there's a version of Doom 2 that interests me even more, and you're looking at it right now. Yes, this is the Game Boy Advance version of Doom 2. In all its bright glory. For you see, this version of Doom 2 is very faithful to the PC version, to almost a fault, and we'll talk about that during this playthrough. But as you can see here, one of the immediate things you may have noticed is the texture quality at a distance. So if you watch the wall textures here, look how clean and crisp they are as we get like up close. Well, as crisp as you can get on a Game Boy Advance. And then kind of look at the textures in the far distance. Yeah, so one of the tricks they had to use with the Game Boy Advance version of Doom 2 was making the textures insanely muddy at even like quite close distance. The end result of that is you end up with a very muddy looking version of Doom 2 here. And yeah, this persists through the whole game, and you'll be seeing a lot of it, so do be sure to kind of keep an eye out for that. You'll also notice that I'm having a bit of trouble here with the controls. So on the Game Boy Advance, if you've never played a Game Boy Advance, you probably don't know there isn't actually an analog stick. So Doom is actually using a D-pad here, so this is very much reminiscent of the console ports from the 1990s. Let's take out this imp here. You'll also notice the blood is green. Now, I'm not sure if that was a Nintendo mandated thing or if that was just the developers, you know, kind of paying homage to the SNES version of Doom, but either way, it's kind of weird. So all the monsters in this game have green blood, and that means all of them have green blood. So as you can see here, we walk up to the texture here and look at it sort of like blur in and out of existence. It's not great. But this is entryway on the Game Boy Advance. And to get as much help as we can. And yeah, so that's entryway out the way. So far, not so bad. There's a lot of things to talk about with this version of the game, and we'll be talking about them as we move through the levels. So Underhalls is pretty much untouched. There are a few levels in this version of the game that have been modified, and 2 levels have been split into 2, so there's actually 2 new levels, technically. You can see that it uses the bars here, which means that this was derived from an older WAD of Doom 2, not the newer ones, which, interesting decision. You'll also notice a lack of shadows in this version of Doom 2, and that has to do with the fact that they basically decided, for whatever reason at Taurus Games, to remove the shadows. For the most part, there are some shadows here and there, but like for the most part, everything's basically blasted up to super bright, and you can see here how that kind of makes everything on screen look really bright. The reason for that, I can only guess, is because when this came out, there was only the original Game Boy Advance, and if you ever owned a Game Boy Advance, you'll remember how there was no backlight on those things. And one of the complaints around the original Doom 1 on Game Boy Advance was that some of the levels that actually had a lot of shadows were quite difficult to see. So I'm imagining that they took that to heart when they were making this game and were like, what if we just beefed up the lights everywhere? So it kind of makes this look very overexposed at points. And what kind of makes this even worse is that I'm not sure what the timescale was, but it must have been like within like 6 months to a year. The Game Boy Advance SP arrived, and that was backlit. And so that means that people who played this on the SP ended up basically seeing a blown out version of Doom 2. You'll also notice that the enemy bodies don't hang around when we kill them. I'm assuming that's a memory limitation of some kind. Yeah, Underhalls is Underhalls. It is what it is. There's nothing too much you can really say about Underhalls. We'll head in the door here. We'll open the red door and we'll slowly begin making our way to the end of the level. So you can see our lovely shotgun guy there isn't stuck in the wall. So this is definitely based off an earlier version of the Doom 2 WAD. Because in the later ones, that shotgun guy there is stuck in the wall. One of the worst things about this version of Doom 2, and I'll say this because you're probably noticing this as I'm playing along here, is that Doom Guy does not move very nicely. It's really annoying because trying to move around, trying to dodge around, trying to kind of be speedy is made a lot more difficult by the fact that you don't really have that mobility that you really want. You can use the shoulder buttons to strafe, and that's great, but there's a real difficulty in trying to line up some of the shots here. You're kind of hoping that the auto aim does you a big favour. We got through Underhalls there. That was pretty much what you'd expect. It's pretty par for the course there. You'll have already noticed a few quirks going on as we're sort of making our way through these levels. There's a lot to say about this version of the game, and the thing you have to remember is that Doom 2 didn't really get console ports around this time. The only consoles that even tried to tackle Doom 2 were the Sega Saturn and the PS1. Now the PS1 did a standout job at it, but even it struggled with some of the bigger levels. The Sega Saturn just chewed completely through it because it was the Sega Saturn version, and the story of that version's well known. But the Game Boy Advance here is basically a slightly underpowered SNES, so the fact that this is even running at all on that hardware is pretty impressive. Unfortunately, like, it doesn't exactly make for a super impressive, oh my god, I might die here, impressive version of the game to actually experience in 2023 here, because one of the problems, as you can see, is like as soon as there's a lot of enemies on screen, the game starts chugging, and I mean really chugging, because it really doesn't know what to do with all these enemies on screen. You'll also notice at the end of this bridge here, they've actually modified this ever so slightly so that you can't look down, because normally you can look right down into where the chain gun is, but they've actually modified it slightly so you can't do that. I think they've done that to sort of prevent you from waking all the enemies up in there. Not that it really matters, because there's actually another really weird limitation in Game Boy Advance Doom. This is going to be so difficult without strafe running. It's really hard to strafe run in this version of the game. Like, really, really hard. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that. We'll just carry on. But you can see here, they've actually put this in. I think that's to stop you accidentally waking all these guys up and just adding to the load. As you'll find out in later levels, like, it doesn't really matter, because like some of the later levels have like obscene monster counts. You can see here they removed the windows here so the enemies inside the blue door can't shoot down on you. And again, I think that's to prevent like too many enemies sort of waking up at once and bringing this game back down to an absolute crawl. It's clever because it's not something that most people would notice unless you're kind of really familiar with these levels, but it's enough of a change that like veterans will notice. I think I'm going in the wrong side here. I think the switch is on the other side. Just got to be careful here. So we've got the rocket launcher, which is good. So yeah, you can probably tell from the number of times I'm dropping down into the drink here controlling in this version is not super optimal. Even when like there's not much happening, it's very easy to kind of accidentally hit things you don't mean to. And obviously in a game like Doom, that can prove pretty fatal at points. So I don't think that secret even exists in this version of the game. That was only added in later Doom 2 WAD updates. So I guess we can just leave this level, I guess. So that teleporter's there just to help us if we drop. Yeah, I just want to kind of get out of here if possible. So an interesting thing that happens in later levels, you don't really get to see it in these early levels because there isn't enough room for it, but a lot of the monsters actually stop moving if you kind of move out of range of them. It's really weird, and it's hard to describe, so later on in this run I'll stop and I'll tell you about it when it's happening. But you have to remember as well, like I said, this is the first mobile port of Doom. No other version of Doom 2 even attempted to be portable until the Switch version, which was a pretty big achievement when you think about it. I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and laugh at it and point out how the slowdown and how, you know, everything looks muddy as hell, but you have to really appreciate like just how hard they worked to squeeze this into a Game Boy Advance cartridge. It kind of helps as well that they're not actually using the proper Doom engine. They're actually using the Taurus Games like in-house engine. They use that for several other... Can you see what I'm saying there? Like the chain gunner didn't wake up immediately, like until, even though it should have seen us. Enemies have a limited range of view, and I think once you move out of that range, they just kind of stop moving. We'll take down the shotgunners here. We'll head in here, shoot all this. This completely, like, blowing up the lights like this, like, it has kind of made this level very unmysterious. Like, in the original version, that's all covered in shadows. It's kind of hard to see. But in this version, everything, it's like there's a Christmas parade going on, and everyone's in the spotlight. So we also need to talk about the other elephant in the room with this version of Doom. And it's one that will become more apparent as we kind of move through the levels. And unfortunately, there's not much we can really do to combat it except kind of find a way to work around it. So the armor in this game is pretty nastily busted up. And what I mean by that is, when you enter a new level, no matter how much armor you can have 1 armor, you can have 200 armor. The game will always treat it like you've got no armor. And the reason for that, I can't explain to you. I'm sure there are people who are way more technically gifted than me. Let's take out these imps quickly before I continue this sentence. Right, we should be able to get up here. Oh, okay. Get off my box. Oh, wait, I got off my box. So, it's hard to explain, but you'll see at various points I end up stuck on 200. I'll end up stuck on 200 armor. I won't actually have 200 armor. So when you enter a new level, the game treats it like you've got 0% armor until you pick up an armor bonus, and it kind of activates the armor that you have. So let's take these guys out here. If you enter a level with 100 armor, you have none until you pick up an armor bonus or you find a blue armor bonus. And that's kind of makes a lot of the later levels, when you've got a bunch of arachnotrons and you've got mancubus and you've got a bunch of nasty barons all aiming at you, it can really cause you trouble in the later levels. Hit the switch there. Nice. Oh, fiddles. But yeah, so the armor is busted in this game. There are even times when you'll have like 200% armor. You'll pick up an armor bonus and it'll push it over 200, and because the game doesn't know what to do with that, you just end up with 200 armor, and it's just it's so broken. I wish I could explain, and someone probably will be able to explain why the game ended up that way. So obviously this is the 5th level, the waste tunnels. You can see that a fair few of these early levels are not really touched by the fact that it's on the Game Boy Advance. A lot of these levels are holding in there pretty nicely, I'd say, which is about what you'd hope for. This area is kind of lit up as well, like, so you see what I mean? They've made everything brighter, and the enemies up top there haven't noticed us, even though we've been shooting. Normally they'd all be crowding at the top of the lift there, but they don't see us. And that's kind of the point here. They don't. In this version of the game, there's a very limited view for the enemies, and so it means that if you don't want to deal with certain enemies, all you basically have to do is run out of their field of view, and they'll probably stop walking. You down. I really just want this health bonus around here. That's the main reason I'm bothering coming around here. We can get the plasma rifle from in there as well later on, which is something I'm definitely going to be doing. So we'll head in here, we'll grab the armor bonus. That'll be really nice. I guess my problem with the waste tunnels is that I don't really have very many fond memories of this level. A lot of the other levels in Doom 2 I've got like good memories of, but this one I kind of always just remember kind of trying to get through it as fast as possible. I don't like this bit, for example, like the fact that you can get like sniped in by all these chain gunners here and all these shotgunners is never nice. But again, you've got to be kind of fair on this version of the game. This was not developed like with HD in mind at all. Like not even slightly. Like this is very much a we need a Game Boy Advance version of this game. What corners can we cut to make that happen? So there's nothing really around here. It's too exciting. Just going to come in here to clear out the enemies here. Normally you wouldn't be able to see much in here because this is pretty dark and dingy, but you know, we're playing under this version of the game. We'll take out the enemies here. I don't know, like I said, this level's never really stuck with me as a favourite. In fact, I'd probably put this among my weaker Doom 2 levels if you were to ask me on a bad day. Let's take out all these lost souls here. And let's head towards the red door over here. So this is the first time that we meet the Hell Knight. So the Hell Knight's an interesting addition to Doom. It's basically here to kind of act as a weaker Baron, which I think it does a good job of. I think it's a fun enemy because it does the same damage as the Baron. It just has a lot less health. Okay, thank you, Chain Gunner, for relieving me of all that health. Take out the guys in the window here. Yeah, the Hell Knight, in my opinion, good addition to the roster, because one of the problems that Doom 1 or Ultimate Doom runs into is that it kind of comes to rely on the Baron as a sort of like meat shield in battles, and the problem is, after a while, seeing like Barons pop up is like, oh, it's Barons. I think that's maybe why the PS1 version kind of stops using. It swaps out a lot of the Baron placements in levels for Hell Knights, which I found interesting at first, but now thinking about it, maybe that's why they do that, because the Hell Knights are just better mid-tier enemies. So I want to get that plasma rifle now, I think. Now's a good time to get that. So to get the plasma rifle, we have to drop this and then run across here. And we got it on first try. Nice. So we're pretty much done with this level, other than the fact that we haven't got the yellow key yet, which we'll run into inevitably as we head through this door. We're taking out the imps here. And of course that's walking up all the cacodemons. Now, you might fear the cacodemons, but probably not in this version of the game. But you see, in another interesting little shortcoming, the cacodemons have real trouble ascending. So when they start out in a position, and like when they're walking up, as soon as they start descending, they really have trouble kind of getting themselves to actually rise up. And you'll see that here, where the cacodemons will kind of stay on that level they are, but they won't actually like raise up to the platform over there. You can see they really have trouble kind of getting themselves back up, which makes them kind of nerfed in a way, but it also kind of makes them more annoying, because there's a lot of situations in this game where the cacodemons are supposed to kind of surround you, but they end up falling into pits, and like you'll try getting into a pit and they'll just start biting you from beneath. So that's something we've got to watch out for. But yeah, that was the waste tunnels. It is what it is. It's one of those levels. I don't think many people speak highly of it, and there's a reason for that. But now we're heading into the 6th level here, and yeah, we get introduced to another enemy that's kind of balked in this version. The Revenant, in my opinion, is the single worst enemy in this version of Doom. Because combine it with the armor glitch that we've discussed previously, and the fact that some of the later levels don't have much armor to pick up, their rockets are pretty much always guaranteed to do near full damage on you, even if they shoot from a long distance. And I personally hate facing the Revenants in this version of the game, because it's almost guaranteed that if they get 2 rocket shots on you, even if you have full armor, dead. It's just the way it is. So we're gonna have to see how that goes as the run goes on. So here's another level modification. So to take the load off this massive room, because obviously, you know, the performance issues, they put this big like metal block in the middle of the room, and it kind of works, but it also kind of like renders the room a bit weird now, because it's kind of like, what's the purpose of that? Like, it kind of makes the room seem unnecessarily big. So you can see there's the other side of that grate. It's literally just to stop like the whole room having to be loaded in at once, because I have a sneaky suspicion this room is probably the first of what you'll see as many rooms that this console just cannot handle. And you can see it's already kind of half chugging. It's not going as smooth as it was on previous levels, and you know, that's kind of the thing with Doom 2. Like, a lot of the levels are bigger, and if you're already thinking about like the biggest levels in Doom 2 and how that's going to impact performance, oh yes, we're going to get there, don't worry. I'm not going to bother with the pinkies that down there. I think what I'm going to do, we're just going to grab the blue key and get out of here. We're going to take out these guys here. So you can see there is still some shadows, like they do kind of use shadows like in very small quantities, but it's definitely not this is definitely not as dark as it was in the original. But this monster closet still exists here, which is good for us. Take out the chain gunner there. Oh, hello. So we're heading inside the blue door here, and we're going to take out the shotgunner there. You can see there's quite a few enemies down here, which we have to take care of. On PC version, I'd probably just blitz through all this, but given the fact that, like, you know, this is not like the ideal platform to be playing this on, I don't think I'm going to be rushing at points, because I do want to get through as many of these levels as I can. Let me take that down. So we'll take those down. So here comes the first absolute nightmare part of this. So you can see, like, that took off a massive chunk of armor and health. Now I'm not sure why the revenants in this version are so powerful. I'm not sure, like, if that's just the quirk of the process of getting this onto the Taurus engine or whatever, but it's very annoying, and there are some levels that you're probably thinking of if you've played this game where you're like, oh boy, that's going to make those really difficult. And it does. Trust me, it does. If you're thinking of Monster Congo, I'm thinking of Monster Congo. But we'll see how it goes when we get there. For now, we're just going to grab the goodies in here, which we really want. I'm just being very careful here, you know. It's like tap dancing with Doom Guy here around these tight corners. I have no issue with the strafing and all that in battles, but when you're kind of pushed onto really narrow pathways like that, it's only asking for you to fall in and for there to be issues. So here's the second Hell Knights. So you can see they've added in little, like, boxes here. I assume again to try and take the load off this open area. So those aren't there in the PC version, if you're wondering. Bizarrely dark area there, although you'll notice the weapon sprite didn't go dark either, so... Interestingly, this room hasn't been modified at all. So we'll head up here. So we're going to activate this trap here, which is always fun, but more fun when you can barely see all the enemies because they're all kind of a big blob on the end of the sight. Let's take out the shotgun here. I think we got most of the enemies there with the rocket launcher, luckily. So we'll... We don't really have to hang around, so let's just hit the switch and get out of here. And that's the Crusher done. So as you can see, there are some minor changes being made to the levels to accommodate things, but these early levels haven't really been that bad performance-wise. It's been a very faithful recreation of Doom 2 so far. Let's see if that holds up as we enter the first story blurb here. So yeah, the interesting thing about this version of Doom 2 as well is that it's insanely faithful to like the story, except for the next story blurb after this, which comes at the end of level 12 and not level 11, which is really bizarre. But this is your story. If you've never played Doom 2, congratulations. Welcome to the bare minimum that counts as storytelling. I'll let you read it, and then we'll head off to everyone's favourite map 7, Dead Simple. So, as we previously discussed, I actually don't have any armour here. So even though it says 155%, really it's just a big massive 0. So what I'm going to do here, rather than kind of do what I'd normally do, which is cavalier charge into the middle and just kill everything, I'm going to sneak around and I'm just going to make sure I kill all the ones on top before they get a chance to really do damage to me. So that's going to bring down the walls for the arachnotrons. So these guys could cause me a lot of trouble if I'm not too careful. It's really weird seeing everything with green blood, by the way. If you're kind of looking at this going, that's weird. It is weird. It's weird seeing all these enemies with green blood, from Doom 2 in particular. But you can see, like, they're not waking up to the gunfire because we're kind of doing it out of range. Ow, 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 that hurts. There's a lot of quirks with this version of Doom, and it's one of those things where like you've got to learn the quirks to really do well in the game, because unfortunately if you try to, can you see how that arachnotron didn't, even though we were shooting it, it didn't turn to shoot at us because it was out of range, and so it wasn't really marked to shoot at us. It's a mechanic that you kind of need to learn if you want to get through some of the later levels. But for now, you know, you can see it in, it's kind of helpful at points. So before we dash off to the next level, I'm going to grab all these goodies, as all good Doomers should. And that's the end of Dead Simple. Very simple level, very hard to mess up that level, but it's good fun. So of course now that means we're off to Tricks and Traps, and yes, this level is here pretty much in its entirety. Although, like I mentioned earlier, the Cacodemons here not being able to float up and chase after you is kind of funny, because it means that like these guys are all going to stay up high, but as you'll see in a bit, if they all kind of start dropping down, they can't really get back up. Take you down. There is an argument with this version of Doom over whether like they should have been as faithful as they have been here. Because if they cut down some of these levels and maybe kind of worked on optimizing it, maybe it would be a more rounded experience. But oh, that's another little change there as well you might have noticed. When you pick up rockets in this version, the rockets are worth 10. The boxes are worth 10, not worth 5 like they normally are. A lot of pinkies. I don't really want to get into a position where I'm being surrounded by enemies, because it's very easy in this version to sort of get swarmed and lose all your health. I'm going to let the plasma rifle do all the heavy lifting here. We got ourselves a BFG here. So I'm coming in here to pick up the backpacks mainly. There's no other reason why you'd want to come out this far other than to pick up the BFG, which is a big reason in itself, to be fair. So now you're going to see the Cyber Demon fight here, and we're going to let this play out for a minute just because I do enjoy watching this from a distance. I don't know how I feel about the bodies disappearing. Wow, the Cyber Demon's actually getting ripped here pretty badly. I don't want to have to use all my BFG ammo on all these Barons, but the Cyber Demon there was not doing a good job. Wow, he really went down quickly there, didn't he? So we'll pick that up, and we'll pick up the Supercharge. But as I was saying, I think one of the problems with this version of Doom 2 is that in trying to be this ambitious and in trying to get this whole package into the Game Boy Advance, which, as I mentioned, is probably about no more powerful than a SNES at the end of the day. It wasn't designed for 3D games. I think that one of the biggest failings of this port is like not understanding that limitation. And it is impressive, don't get me wrong, but there are times when like you kind of wish they'd said, we have to sort of think again about this. One change I do like in here, so this is a trap, like the platform goes down. Now, because we're using the D-pad here, turning up there is going to be an absolute arse. But luckily, they've put a little teleporter down here, so that you can actually get to the end, even if you F it up. And I'm grateful for that, because there's absolutely no reason why like you should get punished. Especially because on the PS1 version of Doom, they don't have that there. And you still have D-pad control, so it's very easy to veer off there and end up having to do the whole level again. Yeah, welcome to level 9 here, the pit. Can't say I'm too fond of this one on any platform. But this level's not... I think one of the saving graces on this level is that the Pain Elemental isn't able to shoot Lost Souls out of its mouth because the level already has a bunch of Lost Souls in it. The main thing here is making sure we don't die. You will have noticed already that like my arm is stuck at 200. That's that glitch we were talking about earlier. There you go, still at 200. I don't know what the fix is exactly, but it will get fixed eventually. Something will happen whereby we'll end up kind of resetting it. But yeah, the armor glitch is kind of a deal breaker in some aspects in this version. It's actually worse. It's actually a bigger deal breaker than the performance for me. I can kind of overlook the poor performance because like this is still Doom, it's still fun. But the armor being broken kind of makes some of the levels just ridiculously difficult. So as we kind of head outside here, you'll see the Caco Demons in that toxic pit there. They can't come out to fight us, so they basically act as very large pinkies, which is interesting. I also think the Mancubus having green blood, just when it melts, when the sprite melts as you kill it, it's kind of a very different vibe. Let's go with that. So what I'm doing here, I'm just clearing out that central area. I'm not gonna. Oh god, hello. Yeah, let's just get over here. I don't fancy fighting these things up close if I can avoid it. You can see the Caco Demons don't really pose too much of a threat. They're just more of a nuisance because they kind of get between us and the thing we're trying to jump to. So we'll take down the Caco Demons there. So that gives us free access to this middle section here. There is a BFG in here, which is one of the main draws for coming here in the first place. We're going to take down all these lost souls. So there's a whole bunch of lost souls in this level, which means the pain elementals will be useless when we end up fighting them. Which is good, because to be honest, I don't really fancy dealing with pain elementals if possible. An interesting fact as well about this game, so back in the early 2000s we didn't actually have a PC in our house. There was a few years there where we didn't actually have a PC in the home, so the only way I could play Doom was on the Game Boy Advance, and this and the Game Boy Advance version of Doom 1 were the ways that I kind of sort of rekindled my Doom 2 adventures. So for a very long time, this was the only way I could play Doom 2. And I have like a lot of fond memories of getting this when I got my Game Boy Advance SP. Fun fact, I got the tribal version. And yeah, it was fun. Like, it's easy to look back now and be all mean about the state of this, but you know, this was, for a lot of kids, I reckon this was probably their first introduction to Doom, and it's not that bad. This could have been a lot worse, let's be honest. There were fully fledged home consoles that couldn't manage even Doom 1. We'll grab the blue key here, and we'll head up and kill the pain elementals up here. So weird seeing the green blood. I don't know why, it just draws attention to it more. Oh yeah, we have to hit the switch over here, don't we? Another interesting note is that these two Doom games on the Game Boy Advance, they were developed by two different companies. So Williams did the Game Boy Advance port of one, and that actually has multiplayer. So if you can find someone else with a link cable and a copy of Doom 1, you can actually do deathmatch on that version of Doom. Not so with this one. This one doesn't have any kind of multiplayer access or anything like that. To be fair, I never made use of that anyway, but it's a bit of a sore spot that it's not in here for those who would have wanted to use it. A lot of enemies and I can't really be bothered dealing with all of them, so let's just tear them down from down here. But yeah, so Williams actually modified the Doom engine to fit it onto the Game Boy Advance. It also makes use of the Jaguar levels, so that's kind of how they were able to make that work. But obviously, because only the PlayStation version of Doom 2 existed, and the Saturn version, but since those two are the same, I'm always just going to say PlayStation version because that's the better one. Obviously, a lot of the work you're seeing in this version probably had to be kind of done in-house by Taurus, which is quite incredible when you think about it. Thank you, Rocket, for shooting into my foot there. Because the Game Boy Advance was definitely not a 3D gaming machine. It was definitely not intended for that. I am very tempted to run down there and grab that bag of ammo, but I also know that I'll lose a lot of health doing it, and it's really not worth it when my arm is so buggered. We will pick up all this shotgun ammo because we kind of need it right now. Done quite well to get all that ammo back there before the end of the level. So I'm not going to engage all the enemies in this room. I'm literally just going to run on the outside of the room and get out of here, because there's no reason to fight all the enemies at the end there. They're not really worth the time or effort. 50% across the board. I'm actually quite impressed by that. Didn't intend for that. So we're here at refueling base. Infamously, this is one of those Ultimate Doom levels that found its way into the mix of Doom 2 and was repackaged for this game. So if it kind of feels like an Ultimate Doom level in parts, that's probably because it is. Well, it was anyway. Unfortunately, the pain elementals from here on will be shooting us with lost souls, and of course, because we haven't picked up an armor bonus yet, they're doing a lot of damage to me, which, you know, not a fan of. Not a fan of. I am grateful for the fact that these spectres are kind of well outlined. Man, we just got absolutely munched, didn't we? Refueling base is really interesting because it has a lot of areas that you don't actually need to go to. All it really expects of you is to get the yellow and blue key, and those, once you kind of knows where those are, it's pretty easy to skip like 90% of this level without ever touching anything in the rooms. For example, we don't even need to go in this room. I'm just kind of coming here to kill all these guys so they don't walk up behind me and shoot me when I wander into that room back here, because there's going to be a lot of enemies in this room. So let's see what happens in here. This room's very nasty. There's so many hit scanners in here, and a lot of them won't wake up until you're right in front of them. So you've got to take your time, and you've got to make sure you've got a lot of health on hand, and you've got a lot of ammo. The Zoop Shotgun's not really the best weapon in my opinion for dealing with this room. Chain Gun's probably the best shout, or the Plasma Rifle if you've got that. Wait. Oh, I've messed up here. We may very well end up dying here. Wow, lovely, we picked up some blue armour. We'll never say no to that. It's kind of impressive how many enemies are on screen at any one in this room. Like, if you need an idea of just how ambitious this version of Doom 2 is trying to be, like, it's definitely not culled the monster count in these levels. I would very much argue that this is a good room to showcase that like there's just as many enemies as you would normally expect to see in here on the PC version. Ah, oh, God, I've opened that door. So in that room there's a bunch of chain gunners who will likely take great pleasure in blasting me in the face if they get the chance. Like I said, this room's nasty because there's a bunch of enemies who can walk up behind you and just start shooting you in the back. But yeah, the big takeaway is that they really wanted you to experience Doom 2 on the go with the Game Boy Advance version, and yeah, it fits that brief. It's kind of annoying as well that you can only save between levels. You don't actually get to save in the middle of levels, which is a bit disappointing, although I guess like that's one of the little sacrifices you have to make to get Doom into your pocket. We'll take out these pinkies around this corner. And if you're wondering why everything's so bright, I have got one of those goggles that light up everything, so it doesn't normally look this blown out. Ah, there we go. See, so it's going to be slightly less bright in a second. I mean, it doesn't look that different, does it? Let's be honest. We've picked up the yellow key here. So what I like to do here, in service of like trying to avoid as many fights in this game as I can, I just sneak in here, grab the blue key, and then I'm just out of here. Like, I don't even stick around to fight all those enemies. I'm gone. We'll not say no to sell ammo. Will not say no to sell ammo. Just checking that there's nothing interesting happening around here. So here's the Cyber Demon. Now, you can imagine that the Cyber Demon's a bit of a pain in the backside, so having invulnerabilities when facing these things is pretty essential. Luckily he didn't really put up that much of a fight. So, as I mentioned earlier on, once you've got the blue and yellow keys, it's very simple to just run through the level and kind of have at it to the exit. I don't really like exploring this level. I think a lot of this level is very forgettable. So, for my money, I always just sort of grab the keys and run. I know some people will be like, well, you should go explore, you know, you should go and see all the level. And to that I'll say, not with these tanky controls. Maybe if this was on the PC, I would do that. But we're playing the not PC version here with the awful D-pad controls. So, here we are at O of Destruction, Circle of Destruction, whichever way you want to call it. The main thing in this opening part here is we've got to get rid of the hit scanners around the circle here, because there's a lot of them, and if we don't get rid of them, they will cause a lot of damage to me. So it's kind of important that we do that. Oh, didn't mean to fall down here. You may notice a Caco Demon swimming in that toxic there. Again, it can't really get itself out. So what we're going to do here is just take out the enemies in the cage here. Sometimes you can shoot lost souls through the cage, which is not desired. Okay, so we got rid of those guys. I want to get rid of the lost souls though, because if they get out and start flying around, they may become annoying later on. Oi, that's enough of you. Now play a game here of Spot the Imp against the wall. Because it's kind of in the mid-range, it just kind of blurs into the wall, which was fun. It is kind of unfortunate that the draw distance in this game is pretty much non-existent. Like, if you look up at the cage in the middle there where the imp is, can you even see the imp? Like, it's there, but you can't, because the pixel count reduces greatly once you're kind of at a distance. It's very hard to make out enemies like that. Let's take care of you. You can see the Ratnatron actually deactivated there because we went out of range. So that was useful. I'm going to take care of the enemies here. So of course... Oh god, hello. Before we talk about what I was going to talk about, let's kill you. So this is kind of a very interesting addition for me into this version of the game, because we get the Archvile here. Now, in the PlayStation version of Doom, they didn't put the Archvile in, and I read it was because of memory limitations, because like it kind of created problems. But you can see here, he's happily reviving the enemies that we've already killed, even though the bodies disappeared. So the Archvile lives in this version, and oh my god, if he isn't the most annoying thing in the universe. Oh my god, can you just go? Oh my god, can you go down? You can see this is causing me all kinds of problems here. Oh my god. We have killed like these enemies like so many times already. Oh my god, okay, we killed it. 1% health, wow, okay. Thanks for that, imp. Wow, okay, I suffered there. If you needed proof of just how annoying the Archvile can be in this version, just like normal Doom 2, then congratulations, you've just seen it. And it's interesting, like I said, because it's not in the PS1 version of this game, and it's not in the Saturn version. It's an enemy that was kind of removed, and I feel it's kind of to the detriment of those versions. It's one of the few things those versions kind of get wrong, in my opinion. But you can see the performance on this level is not the best. We are kind of gently chugging along here. Oh, so you want to talk about earlier when I said these lost souls can get out. If you let them get out into the level, they will just kind of drift around and cause like annoying. Because he's going to charge up behind me there, and I know exactly what he's thinking. That wasn't too bad. I do like how the spectres in this version kind of shimmer a bit against the background, so it's quite easy to spot them in this version. Sometimes they're quite difficult to see in the PC version, depending on the source port you're using. Although if you play the Doom 95 version, they just flash white and clear, so they're incredibly easy to spot. So there's a revenant there I really want to kill. I really don't want to be dealing with him up close, given how nasty those things are. We've got rid of all those lost souls. That's a red door. Yeah, we can't go in there right now. You can see there's the Caco Demon, enjoying its time in the Toxic. But because we lifted it up there, it was able to come up with us. But it kind of, like I said, the Caco Demons in this version are kind of weirdly positioned as awkward, not rising Caco Demons. We could actually probably make it across, because that's the nut. Ah, that's nasty. Oh, yeah. There we go. The thing is, we could probably run across that platform to the right there, because it's actually the unfixed version, because they actually changed that barrier there, so you can actually, because in the modern releases, it's blocked off fully, but like in the original Doom 2, you can actually walk down the sides and skip the whole level if you really want to. I'm looking for health. That's kind of what I'm looking for at the minute. But instead we're going to grab some cell ammo, which, you know, I'm not going to complain about either. Just look how untextured those textures are when you look from a distance. These green textures really don't hold up at a distance. We're going to take out these pinkies here and make sure we get this lost soul. I'm going to save the invulnerability, I think, until we get round to going into the part with the Caco Demons. Yeah, so this is definitely the unmodified version of this quad, because in the later updates they actually put a little bridge there that comes down, so you can actually walk across to the... we can't go back this way, we have to do the loop again. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how these levels were tweaked after release. Oh. I don't know if Pain Elementals suffer from the same thing as Caco Demons. I should probably look into that. Yeah, we don't want these lost souls sort of chasing us too far through the level. Could you not? Oh my god, could you be less annoying? So grab the invulnerability here. I'm going to try and make use of it, although I am kind of fighting against the... why did I shoot? Sometimes I forget the use, but see, I fell for the thing there because I thought the bridge was there. Because it's in the because like I said, in the later revisions of Doom 2, after the release, like there's a little bridge there that you can use to walk across, and I genuinely forgot it wasn't there for a second. So that's kind of my bad. I should have remembered that. But also, why did they use an old version of this WAD to make this? I would love to see someone from the developers of this talk about the process of making this. I'm pretty sure that's doing absolutely naff all. We'll go down and we'll just do this. Really? So we'll head around here and we'll sort out the Caco demons here. Normally this area is bathed in darkness, but here it just kind of feels like a Monday afternoon. I'd love to know in the comments what people think about the way lighting is handled in this version of Doom. I don't know if I'm a fan of it. It does kind of wash the looks of this game out, and to be fair, Doom 2 isn't the prettiest looking game at the best of times. The base Doom 2 WAD, in my opinion, is very bland, like with its brown and its greens. And kind of washing it all into one big mess, in my opinion, is a bit of a decision. The lighting really doesn't help when everything's kind of lit up the same. Oh, I've messed this up, haven't I? Yeah, I've messed this up. Yeah, it's already going back up. I hate this puzzle. I hate this puzzle more when you've got a control Doom guy like he's moving in 4 directions. Like he doesn't know what a diagonal is. Okay, so we'll shoot you in the face. So we're pretty much done with this level here. You off. If we run through here, we should be able to pick up a supercharge. If we can, don't look at the distant textures. Don't look into their eyes. They're not glorious. Oh man. So I have to say that like the first 11 levels, so the first set of levels. Oh, why did I fall down? Set of levels in Doom 2 have kind of been nicely handled. I think that obviously the bigger levels are yet to come, like some of the later levels are ginormous, but I think that this does a good job of sort of setting up the scene here. I don't think we've seen too much in the way of negative performance, and I think that the modifications have been subtle enough that most people wouldn't notice. So I'm a big fan of what we've seen so far in this playthrough. First set of 11 levels, I'd say, are perfectly passable. Like, the good levels are good, the bad levels are bad, and that's all we want to see, really.